Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the story about Naruto. What if Naruto had Yin-Yang release, part 3. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please do support for more awesome content and also hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. And also support the creator of this fanfic. I have created many playlists, check it out in the channel. So let's start the video. Izumi sat at her kitchen table eating dinner with her two brothers. Both boys were quiet as they ate the chicken curry and rice she had prepared. It was late at night, but her brother was still in uniform since he was going back to work. She couldn't help but feel tension in the air. Naruto was more nervous than usual and would give Baisho sad looks when he thought no one was looking. For the last 6 months he had studied Fuinjutsu alongside Sakura. Oho had agreed to teach the girl after a private meeting with Lady Namikaze, and Naruto had been happy to get a new friend. Izumi didn't like seeing him sad about anything. As for her older brother, he seemed distracted. Baisho had come home earlier troubled about something, but snapped at Izumi when she asked him what was wrong. After showering and getting ready for dinner, he showed up at the table dressed to go back out again. All he said was there was overtime at the station and he was taking it. The silence was getting on her nerves, so she asked her youngest brother. "So, Naruto, are you and Sakura working on any projects with Master Oho?" "No, not really," Naruto said, poking at his bowl with his chopsticks. "Sakura is still trying to get her writing speed down faster. I thought we talked about your stutter." Baisho started to get annoyed. "It's unbecoming of a ninja." Izumi glared at Baisho as Naruto looked down in shame. The only reason the redhead even stuttered was because of his older brother's presence. The white-haired boy threw his chopsticks down in disgust and stood up. "I need to get going," Baisho said harshly as he made his way to the door. Both Izumi and Naruto heard the loud slam as he left. Izumi looked at Baisho's half-eaten bowl annoyed. She was the only one that did the cooking as Naruto was too small and Baisho couldn't boil water. It really angered her when she put the time and effort into a meal that wasn't appreciated. Luckily, she knew Naruto would eat his bowl and the giant pot on the stove. Hardly anything went to waste with an Uzumaki around. "Don't worry about it, Naruto," Izumi said, rubbing her brother's soft hair affectionately. "You know he loves you as much as I do. He just wants you to be strong. Why don't you show him your new seal tomorrow?" Naruto looked down at his left arm. He had come up with an idea to use Jinjutsu based on the design of his Uzumaki mystical healing seal. Oho had helped him write out the kanji and supervised the forced scrying. Sakura had watched, fascinated by the whole process, and wanted to try it, despite the obvious pain it inflicted. Jinjutsu was the art of attacking someone's mind. There were two ways to do this. You could either affect one of the 5 senses to trick the brain into believing something not true, or you could attack the brain directly. However, most Jinjutsu required extraordinarily little chakra, making them almost impossible for Naruto to perform. If you applied too much chakra, the Jinjutsu would unravel before it could actually do anything. The seal on his arm measured his chakra as it flowed through a set of pre-made kanji that molded the Jinjutsu for him. The drawback was he only had a set number of Jinjutsu he could use, and he had to physically touch his target with his left arm or hand. As he and Izumi finished their meal in silence, Naruto thought back on the last 6 months. Sakura and her mom were genuinely nice people who were truly kind to him. His new friend had even introduced him to Kakashi Haddock, a famous shinobi trained by the Fourth himself. The little redeed still felt guilty about what happened 2 months ago though, even if it wasn't intentional. Sakura and Naruto had been having a practice spar behind Oho's house when Kakashi approached them. He had taken a little time in correcting their stances when Sakura began to beg him to demonstrate the Rasengan. Reluctantly, he showed his sensei's legend to the two kids. The issue was Naruto had learned the tree walking and water walking by watching them being used and feeling how the chakra was applied. The Rasengan was just a much more advanced form of chakra manipulation, just with much more force and power. It had only taken him 3 days of contemplation to work by himself. Afterwards, he felt guilty when he realized that he stole Sakura's dad's. He decided to pay the pink-haired girl back by helping her master the Flying Thunder God and Needle Jizo. So far progress was slow with the teleportation, but Sakura could now make a solid, sharp pink armor that covered her whole body. Izumi stood up and placed her and Baisho's bowls in the sink. She then left to go out back for some light exercise. Naruto almost ate the entire pot and then washed the dishes. Setting them in the rack to dry, the Redeed decided to go and take a shower. Stepping out of the hot water after showering, Naruto walks to the sink to brush his teeth. Wiping the glass clean of mist, he saw the proof of his artificial Kekkei Genkai reflected back at him. The kanji for form was still as visible today as it had been when he first completed his project. It still made him smile when he thought about how everyone would react to seeing his sweet release. The sweet release was exactly how it sounded, candy style. It was the feat he achieved when he sealed various candies inside his own chakra network. Experimenting with it was actually going very well, and its capabilities were even better than what he had hoped they would be. One interesting thing the Uzumaki had discovered was he could channel higher chakra changes through his candy. It started with wind style. Naruto figured he already knew a few winds, so learning to channel pure wind chakra would be the easiest. After that he worked with lightning, because he had discovered several scrolls that detailed various famous things that he was trying to duplicate. His peppermint was actually the easiest to channel chakra with, and he could already form it into kunai and shuriken at will. After wind and lightning, Naruto moved on to earth. He didn't really have a reason other than supposable channeling earth chakra could allow one to strengthen the durability of themselves and other constructs. This was when he discovered by accident that he could use higher chakra changes with his sweet release. Naruto had channeled wind chakra to his right hand and earth to his left. He then created a peppermint kunai to see if it would be extremely sharp and denser. He had found the peppermint form of his sweet release was weaker than steel and was hoping earth chakra would strengthen it. At first nothing seemed different than any other time he made a peppermint kunai. It was red and white striped from tip to handle and weighed the same as always. He threw the knife at a tree to see if it would cut deeper and felt a kind of pull in his mind. When he focused on the sensation, the kunai stopped mid-flight and just hung in the air. He then gave a mental pull and the knife flew back to his hand. He had researched the phenomenon and realized what he had done was recreate the magnet release. This was a powerful bloodline limit that was well known to be found in 3 of the 5 major shinobi villages. 2 of the most powerful users ever known came from Hidden Sand. They were the 3rd and 4th Kazekage. The 3rd Kazekage learned to use his magnet release by controlling large amounts of iron sand, and the 4th did the same with gold. Naruto had wondered why the 4th Kazekage used gold instead of iron, but the books he read never really gave that information. Maybe the 4th wasn't as strong as the 3rd, and gold was lighter, meaning it took less chakra to manipulate. There was a rumor that the 3rd Tsuchikage of Hidden Stone used magnet release to fly, but no one was actually sure. Naruto had been overly thrilled when he figured out what he was doing. He honestly didn't understand where the ability came from. The only explanation was a further manifestation of his Yin-Yang release channeled through his sweet release. However, that was all it would channel through. All attempts to magnetize other objects, like normal kunai and animals, had proven ineffective. It would seem all his abilities to channel higher chakra could only be performed through the sweet release. Despite the drawback, it wasn't too big a deal. The information he found on the 3rd and 4th Kazekage gave him a cool idea. An ultimate defense called the drifting cocoa cloud. He could generate large amounts of cocoa and powdered peppermint to form an ever-shifting mass to block and deal damage just by thought alone. The best part was he had it tied into a special sensor seal on the back of his neck that would trigger the moment an attack was sensed. This truly made it an ultimate defense. Naruto had also learned, while reading up on the Hidden Stone village, that lighting and earth chakra could grant you the explosion release. This one, however, made the shy boy nervous. The last thing he wanted to do was blow himself up and therefore hadn't done much with the knowledge. He was perfecting what he had so far with the wind, lighting, and magnet style. Generating earth chakra was only to strengthen his sweet release constructs. Naruto finished brushing his teeth and left for his room. Looking around the almost completely orange space, the little boy spotted the picture of him and Baisho sitting on his nightstand. The 2 brothers had posed for the photo at Izumi's insistence. Both were standing under the tree in the backyard wearing their normal attire. It was Izumi's 12th birthday 7 weeks ago. Naruto's big sister came to tuck him in. The Uzumaki didn't really need her to do that, but he knew she liked it. Plus, if he was honest with himself, he loved it too. He just didn't want anyone calling him a baby. "Good night, little ninja," Izumi said, kissing him on his forehead. "Are you excited? Your birthday is in 3 weeks." Naruto hadn't really given thought to that. He had been so busy with training, and spying his special day had crept up on him. He would start the academy with Hinata and Sakura in only a couple of weeks. Izumi herself would be going to attend her last year since it was already decided by the clan, and Hokage she could graduate a year early. Getting nothing more than a tired shrug from her brother, Izumi sighed exasperatedly at the ceiling. Ever since Naruto had come to live with them, she had tried to make a big deal about his birthday, but he never seemed interested. He liked his friends coming over and having cake and ice cream, but he never cared to have a large party like some of the clan heirs did. Izumi just rubbed his head and left. She had to get up early tomorrow and meet Hana and Yuzuka for an intensive training session. Maybe she could take Naruto, he and Kiba could play together. The two boys hung out okay, but never seemed to click. Naruto watched silently as his big sister left. His eyes once more glanced back at the picture of him and Baisho. Anger began to feel the young Jinchuriki's chest as he thought about the truth of his older brother's overtime. The Uchiha clan had begun to collect money by doing illegal jobs. They would aid criminals with smuggling contraband and sometimes murdering their clients' competition. He had to look the word contraband up in a dictionary to know what it meant. There were 3 Uchiha civilians involved, the go-between people for the clan and unsavory clients that were directing Baisho and giving him the jobs, and tonight was no exception. The 3 men seemed to be working independently of Lord Fugaku. They were sleazy overweight fat bastards that gave Naruto the creeps. The kind of wealthy rich assholes that thought because of their money the world was there to do with what they pleased. Naruto wasn't sure exactly what the shipment Baisho was overseeing tonight was, and in truth, wasn't too sure what most of the products were. Kiba, Choji, and Shikamaru had mentioned that contraband could be anything from alcohol and drugs to stolen pottery. Naruto didn't think his older brother would be guarding vases though. The Uchiha civilians and Baisho talked in code, mostly when they discussed their clients. That was smart on their part, in the sense that someone like the little Uzumaki spy didn't have a complete idea about what was going on. He thought feedstock was the code word for opiates, another word he had to look up, but he wasn't sure if it could also mean illegally obtained beef. The little boy closed his eyes and concentrated on the markers Baisho was wearing. Naruto had tagged many people and their belongings within the Uchiha clan. This allowed him to spy on everyone or protect everyone at a moment's notice. His older brother had left the village and was making his way east towards the coast. He would be there within the hour at his current pace. The young boy sighed sadly. It wasn't Baisho's fault, not entirely anyway. Ever since he lost his shinobi license, his older brother had been forced to serve the will of the Uchiha clan. His skill and readily availability made him the perfect localized tool to carry out secret missions. It also didn't help that the clan had just suffered a heavy loss. Uchiha Shisui had recently been found dead on a riverbank. The official cause was suicide, but no one believed that for a second. Some within the clan believed Itachi had something to do with it, and some believed the village had him killed because he was getting too famous and strong. Old man Hokage, however, didn't know who was responsible, and the elders didn't either, or they weren't saying if they did. Naruto was ashamed of himself. He had taken it upon himself to watch over the Uchiha and protect them from themselves and the village from their ambitions. Now one was dead on his watch, and he didn't know the circumstances behind it or why. Even with his space-time spying technique, he couldn't be everywhere at one time. It made him wonder just how much more he missed. That was why he had gotten help, or rather made something to help him. Itachi and Shisui had given him the idea actually. He had gone with Izumi to watch them spar once and saw the older Uchiha using crows during substitution jutsu. When he asked what they were doing, Shisui explained how they had trained birds to help them. It hadn't taken Naruto long to find some eggs. He had read a basic animal handler's guide which suggested hatching the eggs with one's own chakra. This created a basic trusting link between the ninja and animal to be used. What had happened was Naruto's Yin-Yang release had built the crows up in their eggs and hatched them in a day. The fully mature birds had an unusual way of always understanding exactly what Naruto needed them to do. They lived in the wild unless the Uzumaki summoned them to his side. Each one had a marker and a summoning marker in its beak. If Naruto put a decent amount of chakra in the summons, they could appear large enough to carry a full-grown man. Most summons worked this way actually. In their homes they were large, but when summoned their size could multiply by 100 times. The little boy believed it had something to do with nature energy, but had no way of confirming the theory. Naruto had one following Itachi now, and if they saw or felt anyone suspicious, he would know immediately. Enough is enough. Naruto thought to himself. I'll follow Baisho and guilt him into doing the right thing. His brother couldn't be all bad, and Naruto was tired of failing. In almost 4 years he hadn't really achieved anything to help either the village or the Uchiha clan. All he'd done was get stronger, now was the time to use that strength. It was his older brother. How bad could this be? Smoke Harbor, 1 o'clock in the morning. Baisho watched bored as the men loaded the shipment. Some he knew were employed and others forced. They all smelt like garbage and needed baths. Only about a tenth of the cargo remained to be loaded and things were going smoothly. It was almost over. There had been a delay with the port master, but the Uchiha officer took care of it. The greedy old fool wanted more money than what was agreed upon after seeing the size of the shipment. He was now sitting at the bottom of the ocean floor. He had been alive when his weighed-down ass was thrown in, but there was no doubt he ran out of air by now. "Sir?" one of the lackeys asked, scared. It wasn't every day you watched a shinobi throw another man wrapped in heavy chains 300 yards out to sea. Some of the shipment escaped. "Show me," was all the Uchiha said. He was not in the mood for this. Meanwhile, a crow landed on the warehouse overlooking the harbor. A hole appeared beside the blackbird as a young redeeted boy walked out dressed in the same outfit his sister bought him when he was 4. Naruto figured looking a little like Izumi might help him sway his brother. He looked around at the docks to see several dirty men working quickly to load 2 separate ships. He was curious about the area as the Uzumaki had never once seen it on a map. The small port was only 2 large warehouses built long ways to the water beside one large wooden dock. There was a small town that surrounded the place that had little more than 20 small houses. Naruto himself was on top of the first warehouse looking down at the dock. He walked towards the back of the roof opposite the dock and looked down. A man was smoking a pipe and reading a paper under the outside light. Naruto opened a wormhole behind the guy and pulled him through with his left arm. The young boy was aware of his Herculean strength and took great care to not hurt the man any more than necessary. He had him in a paralysis Jinjutsu, so he couldn't talk or move. He channeled chakra through another seal on his arm and watched as the terrified eyes of his hostage turned vacant. What is this place? I've never seen it on a map. Naruto said while trying to act tough in a shaky voice. It didn't matter, as the man had no ability to resist answering the question. In a monotone voice he explained. This is Smoke Harbor. It is a hidden dock supported by the Leaf Village and Hokage. It doesn't appear on a map because the Hokage deems it so. A Jinjutsu barrier seal keeps anyone from seeing it at a distance, so passing ships never know it's here. It is home to a few civilian workers that run it for a monthly check and free board. Families aren't permitted because of the need for secrecy. Naruto looked around again at his surroundings. If the Hokage knew about this place, then what was his brother doing here illegally shipping contraband? He turned to the mindless tattletale and asked him about Baisho. Some smugglers and gangsters used this place off the books. The former harbor master would take a cut of whatever is shipped in or out to keep silent. Right now, a shipment of drugs, money, stolen jewels, and slaves are being shipped out. The civilians were paid to help, but the pirates also had press-ganged workers. Naruto heard a small child crying and another girl pleading with someone. She was asking to be let go. The Uzumaki quickly knocked his captive out with a pulse of chakra and went to investigate. Laying down on his stomach and peering out at the dock, the Redeed saw a brown-haired girl of 15 holding another girl of 7 in her arms. Please let us go. Where all the grandfather has left. He's sick and he needs us, please. The big-bellied man walked up and slapped her hard in the face. You'll shut up and get back in the cargo hold if you know what's good for you. You and that little runt in your arms is worth a lot of money in the Nagi Islands. What's all this now? A man said coming off the boat frowning. Naruto saw he was dressed in nice fancy clothes. He walked up to the 2 girls and 1 goon. Nothing, Captain. Just 2 slaves trying to escape. The goon said nervously. The captain checked both girls over and noticed a bruise on the elder's face. Look at this, Tsuki. He said disappointedly. You've ruined the merchandise. The captain then spun quickly and put a dagger through the man's throat. He looked back at the boat and saw his cargo watching. There will be no more escape attempts. Anyone tries to escape will die only after suffering and choosing 2 other slaves to join him or her. He then led both crying girls to a large rusted chain sitting on the docks. It appeared to have been discarded there some time ago. Both screaming girls were tied to it and pushed into the ocean, while Baisho watched on impassively. The Fuinjutsu user kept hoping his older brother would do something. Seeing it was up to him, Naruto acted quickly. Baisho was close enough for the tags on his body to reach the girls. The Uzumaki opened a wormhole next to himself that created a rift underwater, where he sensed the children. The pressure from the ocean poured out through the hole, washing both girls onto the roof beside him. The captain was about to address the remaining crew and captives when he heard the noise. "What's that?" he asked angrily. The corrupt Uchiha wasted no time in activating his Sharingan, but saw no one. He quickly made his way to the rooftop as the captain boarded the ship. The crew finished loading the cargo and began to pull anchor. Baisho's eyes narrowed as he saw the water stain on the roof. The air was unnaturally heavy with the smell of salt. What had happened here? Sensing a presence on the other side of the building, the Uchiha quickly investigated. He found a worker unconscious due to Jinjutsu. Damn. He thought. Who had been here and how much had they seen? Just outside of Leaf Village. Naruto looked over the two girls closely to make sure there were no injuries. Both sisters were panting for air while holding each other. The oldest turned to thank her savior but found no one there. The boy had already left. A clearing deep in the woods. Naruto stood looking up at the half moon in the sky. Never did the small child think things with his brother could be this bad. He somewhat understood doing illegal activities to support the clan, even if in no way did he agree with it, but to let innocent people suffer, to allow children to die to make a point, was pure evil. The child's hands balled into tight fists. He thought about Izumi, his innocent older sister, who would be judged by the village for the Uchiha's treasonous acts. He thought about Sakura, Hinata, Hanabi, Choji, Kiba, Shikamaru, and everyone else that could die for the Uchiha's ambition. He thought about the orphans in the orphanage, where he used to live, that had no one to protect them when the likes of those pirates came to steal them away for a quick payday. Baisho was just as guilty as they were. Worse than that, he had been a shinobi of Hidden Leaf. The very people he swore to protect now suffered because he put the Uchiha first. He would murder the village if it meant the Uchiha thrived. From the depths of Naruto's chakra, Kurama stirred. He opened one great red slit eye as the fury of his host grew. He chuckled to himself at the possible long-awaited use of his chakra to weaken the seal. Then he paused as he realized something was wrong. From the halls of the small child's chakra network came a power he hadn't felt since he was a small kid newly made. The sheer power of his father crashed upon the fox's cage as the reservoirs of untapped power were opened. The water crashed violently against the walls, and in the depths of darkness the great Kurama laughed. Finally, someone worthy of the sage's might. Back at the docks. Baisho watched impatiently as the first ship sailed away with its slave cargo. The captain was taking it, and the mostly press-ganged crew, to the Nagi Islands to sell on the black market. The Uchiha knew from stories that he would take liberties from most of the slaves, and not just the girls. The second ship, an all-pirate crew, would be heading in the opposite direction carrying the jewels and money to a small grove of islands not far from Hidden Mist. Criminals pay protection money to the water daimyo to live without being hunted by authorities. As long as they didn't hurt the land of water, then they were left alone. As the final crate of stolen goods was being loaded aboard the second ship, there came a massive oppressive feeling of bloodlust. Every pirate and corrupt worker on the dock and the second ship dropped to their knees helpless. Baisho found he had a hard time breathing. From the far left side of the dock came a loud cry from a voice the Uchiha recognized. Wind-style, devastating vacuum bullets. Baisho's Sharingan came alive as a multitude of small condensed vacuum air pockets came streaking across the air. The number of projectiles was almost 4 times that of what Danzo had used in their spar. Each air pocket left a visible wake in the air as they flew forth to destroy. The ship, crew, and cargo were decimated by the attack and thrown to the depths of the harbor. The pirates still on the docks were ripped apart limb from limb, and their bodies splashed across the wooden planks. Baisho managed to smash his way through the wooden dock in time to take refuge under the sea. He quickly swam to where the wood met the bank and smashed his way out. He stood just inside the right side warehouse door. Hearing footsteps approaching from behind him, the white-haired man turned to see his little brother walking out of the shadows. Baisho noticed he was wearing the sleeveless shirt and shinobi paints that Izumi used to dress him in. He had no ninja tool kit, and his arms were bare for the world to see. For the first time ever, Uchiha was looking at Naruto tattooed on his skin. He wasn't a complete fool. Baisho was aware that Oho had been teaching Naruto, and together they made a medical that saved Hitomi. He had no idea about the other arm though. That was impressive, Naruto. The older boy said in his monotone voice, trying to act calm. May I ask what you're doing here and how you followed me? The time for talking has passed, brother. Naruto said with cold venom. No trace of the shy and polite child that he was at heart showed itself. Instead, what stood before Baisho was an Uzumaki fully committed to battle. Only one thing is guaranteed. Tomorrow, Izumi cries for one of us. The arrogant Uchiha was about to retort when he was forced to dodge a white and red kunai. He traced the flight and realized, shocked, that it was peppermint and not steel. What tricks are you pulling on Naruto? He asked confidently even as his danger sense screamed at him. He ducked as the kunai returned, pointing first, almost impaling the base of his skull. He watched curiously as it floated beside his brother. You never cared enough to pay attention to me, Baisho. Naruto started through clenched teeth. That will be to my advantage. What do you know of combat, brat? The angry Uchiha asked quietly. What advantage could you have over an elite Uchiha such as me? Naruto held his left hand up in the sign for focus as large amounts of cocoa came pouring out of his shirt. It pooled at his feet and began to lazily circle around him on the ground. Baisho, getting tired of waiting for an attack, launched himself across the warehouse floor. The chocolate came up faster than he anticipated to block his left-hand jab. His follow-up right was also easily stopped too. Pushing off, he tried a powerful spin kick that proved to be a mistake. The cocoa formed a hand that grabbed his leg and threw him across the floor with tremendous force. The warehouse was empty for the most part, but the few boxes that still darted the ground hurt when the Uchiha smashed through them. Baisho recovered quickly only to front flip over Naruto as he used Shunshin and his peppermint kunai to attack him with a wind-style vacuum blade. From what his Sharingan told him, the peppermint acted just like chakra metal forged steel. In other words, it was perfect for elemental channeling. Seeing Naruto open to attack, the older boy aimed a kick to the base of his little brother's skull. Just as his foot was about to make contact, a cocoa blocked seemingly from nowhere. Growling in frustration, Baisho gained some distance from the Uzumaki. The Uchiha fully used his eyes to analyze what his brother was doing. It wasn't a trick. The kid was actually using candy in the form of. This had to be Fuinjutsu related, but Baisho didn't understand enough about the obscure art to make a true guess. Your skills are impressive, Naruto. I'm guessing Master Oho taught you well. Naruto frowned. No, you are the first person to see my full capability. Oho Jiji has no idea what I can do. This really threw Baisho for a loop. If that was true, then Naruto was almost entirely self-taught. How was it possible? Enough. Uchiha thought. It's time to end this farce of a battle. Going through hand signs, Baisho unleashed one of his strongest fires. Fire release, Phoenix Flash Destroyer. A large bird of fire made its way towards Naruto, setting the building ablaze. The Redeed made two hand signs, and a large wall of solid chocolate burst from the ground. When the fire hit the wall, it melted and smothered the fire. Another hand sign from Naruto, and the boiling hot thick chocolate became a rushing attack that sped towards Baisho. Impossible. Baisho thought frantically as he dodged the burning globs of death. He countered my most powerful fire with this shit. Baisho channeled chakra to his feet and jumped straight up to the roof. He looked around for Naruto, but didn't see him anywhere. He noticed the walls start to glow an ominous blue as various bomb tags began to light up. He covered the whole room quickly. Boom! The night was lit by a massive fireball that used to be a warehouse. The shockwave carried into the small crop of worker houses, destroying pretty much everything in sight. In the distance, Naruto looked on, knowing his brother wasn't dead. He could feel his markers, still attached to Baisho, moving underground towards him. He slammed his hands down to the ground. Sweet release, jagged peppermint explosion. The ground in front of Naruto erupted in peppermint spikes. Baisho barely managed to jump out of the ground in time to avoid impalement. While in midair, the Uchiha hurled a shuriken and brought his hand up for focus and called out. Ninja art, Shadow Shuriken Jutsu. Baisho's one shuriken became 100 and rained down on Naruto. The Redeed was easily blocked with his drifting cocoa cloud and kept his sensory abilities focused on Baisho. He felt his brother gather a large amount of chakra. He then sensed two of them and guessed he made a clone. From somewhere in front of him, he heard his brother with two voices simultaneously call out. Fire release, great fireball jutsu. Wind release, great breakthrough jutsu. The power of the combo technique was incredible. The Uchiha wasn't called Elemental King Baisho for nothing. Naruto jumped through a wormhole before the attack could hit and wound up free falling through the air courtesy of his black crow circling overhead. Baisho watched his technique burn away everything it engulfed. He took a deep breath to try and regain some stamina. He figured to run back fast to the village in order to do damage control. Naruto's disappearance would not go unnoticed for long. He dodged to the left just as a large trench appeared in the ground where he had been standing. Looking up, he saw Naruto following him firing off a second wind from a peppermint sword. He easily dodged the second strike as another large trench was gouged. The Uchiha watched the Redeed catch himself with his Koko. I hate using Jinjutsu, but he's not giving me much choice. The white-haired boy thought as he locked eyes with Naruto. Jinjutsu art. Sleep. Baisho watched, satisfied, as this took effect. He then ground his teeth in frustration as his little brother seemed to shake it off. Naruto then hurled 4 peppermint shuriken at him that were going too wide to hit him. He paid them no mind as they sailed past but screamed in pain when their sneak attack hit his back hard. When the flying projectiles passed him, they fired a small beam of lightning at each other. The 4 beams became one supercharged bolt and fired back the way they came. Baisho felt his back burning badly as his brother breathed out. Sweet release, peppermint flash surprise. Naruto watched as Baisho hit the ground and skidded away. The Redeed jumped down off his Koko cloud to see if it was truly over. Water release, giant vortex jutsu. The small boy turned surprised as the clone in front of him puffed away and the real Baisho caught him completely off guard. He became trapped in the water which carried him into the ocean. After Naruto sank beneath the waves, the Uchiha ran forward to continue funneling chakra to the technique. Naruto found himself trapped underwater struggling to swim. The problem was he had never been a good swimmer. The Uzumaki tried to gain his bearings to open a wormhole but couldn't focus well enough. Just as the inky black was taking him away, Naruto found himself standing in a large room with a cage on one end. The cage was massive and held closed by a single flimsy piece of paper. Ankle-deep water covered the ground and the small boy could hear a low growling from within the prison. Come closer. A deep growly voice said. Kurama, is that you? Who told you my name, you unworthy worm? The mighty fox exclaimed, finally revealing himself. Naruto looked on in wonder at the fox. The creature was easily the biggest thing he had ever seen. His teeth were so big and white that they hurt his eyes to look at. Honestly, he imagined blood stains or something. Hello Kurama. I'm Naruto. It's nice to finally meet you. Stop that insufferably stuttering. Kyuubi growled. Naruto looked down in shame. The fox studied the boy closely. Judging by what he felt and the knowledge the child had about his real name, he probably somehow met Hagoromo. Sighing, the fox said. Look, we don't have time for this kid. If you don't pull my chakra, we're both dead. Naruto remembered the predicament that he was in. Looking at Kurama, he asked. How do I pull? Just focus on the door and try channeling energy like usual. Kurama said, cutting off the stutter. Naruto did as the fox told him. Focusing on the door, he channeled chakra. Red energy began to flow from the bars and slowly circled him. He stopped pulling chakra and watched as the power flowed from the water straight into his own body. Suddenly he was back in the ocean, only this time swimming against a current was easier. His feet found the bottom and he kicked off straight into the ground. He burst from the surface like a rocket heading straight up into the air. Baisho watched Naruto leave the water covered in the fox's red chakra. Of all the times his stupid brother could discover the monster's power, it had to be now. He watched as the boy finally landed on the bank ready to continue. This is getting old, Naruto. Just give up already. Uchiha said angrily. Naruto didn't bother to retort. He gathered his chakra and unleashed his Koko cloud once more to attack his brother. Baisho dodged heavy attacks meant to crush him, as well spikes of peppermint meant to impale him. He noticed the attacks were faster than before. Knowing he couldn't keep this game of dodge going forever, the older boy ran forward to once again engage with Taijutsu. He applied more chakra to his hands and feet in hopes of smashing his way through. To his frustration, the Koko was proving to be unyielding, but he was making headway. Several times the cloud just barely managed to block his attacks. It was only a matter of time before he made it through. Naruto was trying to think of a way to end it. Never did the small boy think he would be so desperate to kill his evil older brother. He had one that he knew could kill with one blow, and with wormhole jutsu a hit was almost a guarantee. The problem was he couldn't rely on an almost guarantee to win. He had to find some way to keep Baisho from moving and preoccupied while he struck as fast as possible. Using his Coco Cloud to block Baisho's sight, Naruto vanished again and through his wormhole. He reappeared 20 yards away and began to rapidly fly through hand signs and stopped on Dragon. Baisho was trying to locate his brother in the split second he lost him when 4 small spikes of peppermint sprang up around him in a 20-yard diameter. Each gave a crackle of energy before shooting an arsing bolt of lightning into the air which joined directly above the Uchiha's head. Sweet release lightning combo, Limelight Jutsu. Even as Naruto called out the legendary technique, Baisho had already read the chakra with his Sharingan. He knew there was no way to dodge them, as substitution would be disrupted before it could connect with anything outside the circle, and every basic shinobi ability he had was useless in simply surviving the lightning attack. A blinding flash of light and one loud crack of thunder destroyed everything inside the dome of power. Naruto looked on in anticipation. He waited to see what would remain of his brother. A large surge of chakra emitted from the smoke. Standing inside a large transparent gray skeletal ribsage was a bleeding-eyed Uchiha, panting and slightly hunched over. Baisho laughed breathlessly at the stunned look on Naruto's face. "Did you think you could kill an elite Uchiha like me so easily? Behold one of the greatest of the Sharingan, Susanoo." "Naruto?" The young Uzumaki heard someone call from within his head. "Kurama?" The shocked boy thought to himself. "Yes, it's me." The fox growled. "We've established a mental link because we met. I think I can help you fight." "How?" Naruto quickly brought up his Coco to block a blow from Susanoo. Baisho's grew a skeletal right arm and tried to crush him. He began to panic as his defenses were almost breached. "Focus on the cage door again and pull more of my chakra. Then direct it to the sensor seal on the back of your neck. If I'm right, this will allow me to channel my very will into the Coco Cloud defense jutsu you invented." Naruto did as the fox told him. He instantly felt the red chakra flowing from the seal as he concentrated on the sensor tag. The seal began to heat up a little as it took in the red chakra and directed it out to the Coco Cloud defense. An ominous aura filled the air as the chocolate took on a much darker shade of brown. Baisho watched as a fox head complete with red eyes and a white sharp teeth took shape within the mass of cocoa. "Damn, this is bad," the Uchiha thought frantically. He had wasted too much chakra in hopes of ending this fight quickly. Now he was running on fumes and had yet to even land any real blows to Naruto. Baisho concentrated hard and produced another skeleton arm and hand. He brought his hands together in a clapping motion and the transparent skeleton torso mimicked the action. Naruto easily halted the arms with his Kurama-powered Coco Cloud, forming the fox's front legs and hands to do so. He then fired a giant peppermint kunai from the mass that hammered into Baisho's Susanoo, driving him back 20 yards or so. "Is that all you've got, little brother?" Baisho screamed. He then began to pant at the strain of keeping Susanoo active. He quickly brought the arms of his construct up and crossed them in front of himself, blocking the small mass of red chakra that had been fired from the fox head's mouth. Naruto took a close look to analyze his enemy. His brother's eyes had lost the 3 Tomo since they had merged into a new design. His Sharingan now looked like 3 curved top T's whose ends were touching at the eye's middle. However, feeling his chakra and seeing the clear strain on his face, Naruto realized that Baisho was more like a child picking up a sword that was much too heavy, but still trying to fight with it anyway. This power was taking everything Baisho had to maintain, but he refused to let it go. His Uchiha arrogance was killing him. The Uzumaki began going through hand signs at a rapid speed. Baisho watched as best he could with his blurred vision and read the signs for A, but his eyesight was failing him at the distance, so he was unable to determine which one. The mass of chocolate powder circling at Naruto's feet began to rise up in several places, forming 20 dragon heads. They opened their mouths, half charged up wind chakra, and the rest lightning. Wind release, vacuum blast. Lightning release, destruction sphere. Baisho put everything he had into repelling the attack. The bright flashes and explosions kept him fully occupied, but he still managed to feel something that didn't make any sense. In his front he could still easily feel his brother and the fox demon's power, but he could also feel them both behind him. He turned quickly to see the redeed coming at him through a hole in midair, just inside the Susanu's ribsage. His right hand held a ball of sickly green swirling chakra. Baisho dropped the Susanoo and turned to block the attack. Naruto was faster as he rubbed his hand in Baisho's chest. Dark medical jutsu, plague Rasengan. Hokage's office, morning. Sarutobi read the file Tsunade had just handed him. After 2 weeks of investigations, the Anbu hadn't found out anything regarding Uchiha Baisho's assassination. After his most elite ninja had failed in uncovering information, he had contacted both Jiraiya and Tsunade. Both had looked into the issue using their various expertise. Taking a long drag on his pipe, the Hokage read the conclusion drawn up on the killing. A dark medical jutsu, are you sure about this, Tsunade? The blonde with pigtails narrowed her eyes angrily as she folded her hands in front of her face. Yes, I'm sure. A medical jutsu designed purely to kill. No life-saving applications at all. This also clears the Konoha Medical Corps. Looking up from the report, Sarutobi asked. Why is that? Because Tsunade began clenching her folded hands together. No self-respecting medic ninja would create such a technique. This caused massive cellular death throughout the body. Baisho's bones and muscles deteriorated at an alarming rate, almost like rapid decay. Also, judging by brainwave activity at the moment of death, I'm certain he was alive for a few seconds and felt everything after the hit. His internal organs were almost completely liquefied. Something I did find odd was a chakra burn on Baisho's chest. It was like a dense mass of chakra was slammed into him hard, but there wasn't any usual damage associated with that type of attack. I'm almost certain the burn was caused by the killing blow, but I'm having a hard time seeing any medical, even one designed for killing only, needing that much chakra. Jiraiya was thinking about that burn as well. It looked oddly familiar, but he couldn't place it. He almost thought it could be a Rasengan burn, but dismissed the thought almost at once. The only 2 people alive that knew this were himself and Kakashi Haddock. What have you been able to uncover? Sarutobi asked gravely, looking at the hermit. Jiraiya shrugged his shoulders. Not much, I'm afraid. The pirate crew had a deal with the water daimyo for safe harbor. Going by the accounts of the rescued abductees, I'm convinced the person that killed Baisho also saved them. I'm also sure there were other Uchiha involved. Sarutobi took another drag from his pipe as he thought back on what he knew so far. The 2 sisters found outside the village walls reported that someone managed to pull them from the water and then dump them at the gates within seconds, or so they believed. Another possibility was a Jinjutsu of some sort that the rescuer used to hide his or her identity. Regardless, it was their story that got Anbu moving to investigate Smoke Harbor. Upon arriving, they found what remained of the corrupt Uchiha and several dead workers. Not much longer, reports came in from a village not far down the coast about a rescued pirate ship. Several people had given reports about being abducted and sold into slavery. After sailing away, the captain had all the captured people and press-ganged crew locked in the cargo hold. Someone snuck on board, murdered the slavers, then unlocked the cargo hold and left. Luckily, enough people on board had experience with sailing and managed to get the boat safely to shore. It was after several people explained about 2 girls being drowned the Anbu figured out they had been at Smoke Harbor as well. The Uchiha themselves launched an investigation. Sarutobi stated while tapping his pipe on the ashtray. They concluded that Baisho was working alone. Do you have anything that contradicts their investigation? Jiraiya scratched his cheek thinking. Nothing concrete, but are you familiar with Uchiha Kanamoto? He controls most of the Uchiha foreign business interests and banking. Lately, there have been rumors circulating that he and 2 other Uchiha have been involved in several shady deals. Kanamoto has a mother-in-law that lives in the land of rice that recently received a large amount of money for a small piece of property that is worthless. The buyer is a banker that lives in Nagi. I see. Here is inside. You think the pirates were simply in charge of delivery and Baisho was supervising. The real buyer for the merchandise is the banker on Nagi. Sarutobi closed his eyes deep in thought. Tsunade and Jiraiya waited patiently for their former sensei to speak. Finally, he looked at his 2 remaining students. There are things we need to discuss regarding the Uchiha clan and Konoha. Neither of you are going to like what I have to say. The elders and Danzo didn't want the 2 of you involved because they believe you, Jiraiya, are more effective keeping tabs on enemies outside of Konoha, and you, Tsunade, are in too delicate of a state to voice a decent solution. The truth is I should have brought both of you in sooner than this. Public park. Izumi was sitting on a park bench thinking about her older brother. Beside her was the completed Uchiha police report. She had read the file over from front to back 3 times already and still couldn't believe it. How could Baisho be so cruel to innocent people? In the distance, her little brother was playing on the slide and monkey bars with Choji and Shikamaru. Both kids had been forced to come by their mothers. Shikamaru was half asleep leaning against a slide ladder, and Choji was going down the slide after Naruto. Hearing someone approach, Izumi turned to see Itachi walking up. She hadn't actually seen much of him since he joined Anbu and the death of Shisui. He seems to be in good spirits. Itachi commented while watching Naruto play with his friends. Izumi said nothing as she turned back to her little brother, the girl's mind still on the file. Itachi looked at his friend sadly as he didn't know how to comfort her. He sat down next to her and continued to watch the kids. Has there been any development in the investigation from the Anbu side? So far the clan have found nothing. Izumi asked quietly. Nothing so far. Lord Jiraiya believes the real criminal mastermind behind the slave shipment lives on Nagi Island. Itachi explained. An Anbu team that specializes in live extraction was sent out to find the culprit and bring them back to Konoha. Luckily, the village has a special standing extradition order with the Nagi Islands. Izumi placed her elbows on her knees to hold her chin on her hands. She glared down at the ground and asked bitterly. Does the Uchiha clan have anything to fear from what this person might have to say? Itachi gave no comment, which confirmed Izumi's suspicions about Baisho working for the clan. Who put my brother up to it? Itachi sighed exasperatedly. He was under orders from both the Uchiha and Hokage to not tell Izumi anything. The Hokage wanted to save her and Naruto some pain, and the Uchiha wanted this to blow over quickly and quietly. As much as he wanted to confide in his last remaining Uchiha friend, he couldn't do so without violating orders. Ironically, the order he was truly wishing he didn't have to follow was the one both clan and village agreed with. Uchiha Baito requested leave for himself and his 2 sons. Izumi stated to her silent friend. 2 Uchiha Jounin and 1 high-level Chunin are away on a hunting trip. Guess that means a wonderful family is tying up loose ends. Growing frustrated with Itachi's silence, but still trying to keep her voice down, Izumi grabbed the front of his shirt, shook him hard, and whispered harshly. Damn it, talk to me. What do you want me to say? What could possibly make you feel better about losing your older brother? Itachi asked sadly. Izumi reached down beside her leg and grabbed the police file. She pulled out the pre-autopsy picture of Baisho and handed it over to Itachi. The prodigy glanced at it, having already seen it before, and tried to hand it back. You shouldn't be looking at this. Who gave you the file anyway? Your father gave it to me when I asked for it. Being a direct family member, he had no right to refuse me. Izumi said, shoving the picture back under Itachi's nose. Take a closer look at the burn on Baisho's chest. Itachi took the picture back and looked at the indicated area where the spiral-like burn mark was. What am I looking at? Not long ago, Naruto and I had dinner with Lady Namikaze and her daughter Sakura. During the meal, Sakura explained all excited about some special Taijutsu training she and Naruto had received from Haddock Kakashi. She even went on to explain how Kakashi had shown them the Rasengan. Itachi sat quietly, not real knowing where this was going. What did Kakashi and the Rasengan have to do with anything? His attention snapped back to Izumi as she continued. What not many people know is that Naruto is actually good at manipulating and controlling chakra when in large amounts. He managed to copy the tree walking and water walking exercises just by watching them being used and feeling how the chakra worked. Knowing this, I asked him about the Rasengan when we got home and were alone. He was hesitant at first, but finally confided in me he had learned the technique. He then demonstrated the right there in the living room. Itachi was speechless as he stared back towards Naruto. He knew from his father that the fourth's legendary was one of a few techniques not affiliated with a blood limit the Sharingan couldn't copy. How had Naruto managed the impossible feat with only one demonstration? Do you remember the story about my brother saving Lady Hyuga with a medical? Itachi nodded his head and stated. He and Master Oho invented it. Izumi shook her head and said. No, Naruto invented them all on his own. Somehow, he was able to learn a lot about Fuinjutsu in a short amount of time and create a medical technique no one had ever seen before. My little brother knows both medical ninjutsu and Rasengan. Itachi looked from the girl to the picture and then out to Naruto sliding down the slide again. Even if all that's true, there's no way he could have trailed Baisho to the harbor, fight him, defeat him, and then sneak back to Konoha without the Anbu detecting him. Also, the only way Naruto could have hit Baisho with the Rasengan would be up close. Your older brother was no pushover. Izumi leaned back on the bench and stared up at the sky. The report says that Baisho fought an unknown ninja who was skilled in lightning and wind-based attacks. There was also evidence of an unknown element to this shinobi's attacks that might have been an obscure earth release. I'm not so sure about lightning or any possible earth, but I know Naruto was trained in wind release. Also, Naruto wasn't grieving for the 3 days after Baisho died. I just told everyone he was. Instead, he had a high fever and body shakes. I think his sickness was a side effect of using the fox's chakra. Itachi had a blank look on his face as he thought about the issue. The fox chakra aside, how would Naruto be strong enough to kill his older brother? Had he unleashed the full force of Kyuubi, then it would have been noticed by the village, even from the coast. Talking to himself out loud, Itachi said absent-mindedly. I wonder if it could be Sasuke's heart that makes him so strong. It took Izumi a second to realize what the boy was saying. When she did, the girl gave him an astonished look. You really think Naruto is so strong because he has Sasuke's heart? That's big of you. I know it sounds ridiculous, but hear me out. Itachi said seriously. Sasuke mastered the fireball jutsu in only a day to a degree that surpassed me and my father. Not only that, but after a week of work he only needed the sign of focus to use it. I've literally been trying to force him to cut back on training because I want him to enjoy his childhood. I want him to have that time of innocence and wonder what I lost at the age of 4. My uncle showed Sasuke the Earth-style stone barrier a month ago, and it only took him a day and a half to use it. I worry that, if the wrong people discover his skill, they'll force him to abandon his childhood too early. Izumi felt sorry for Itachi because she worried about Naruto in the same manner. If people discovered his Fuinjutsu skill, then they would try and make him a shinobi now instead of letting him attend the academy. You really think their heart swap has something to do with their unnatural skill? It's the only thing that makes sense. Remember, right after Naruto got out of the hospital he almost killed that bully with a precision chakra enhanced attack. It wasn't long after that father showed Sasuke the fireball jutsu. Itachi's face seemed to take on a grim look. There is evidence of something similar in our own clan actually. Have you ever heard of the Manjikyu Sharingan? Izumi shook her head no, and Itachi explained the dark truth of the Uchiha's greater evolved ocular power. The girl felt queasy at hearing that some Uchiha had actually killed their best friends in order to gain the ability. She was further sickened by the fact Uchiha Madara had stolen his younger brother's eyes to gain an even greater evolved eye, the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Did Baisho have the ability? At Itachi's silent nod Izumi began to silently cry. So, he had fallen that far. He killed someone close to himself for power. More than likely he would have done the same to me in order to gain the final evolution. I didn't know him at all, did I? There is nothing to suggest he knew about the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan or that he was going to use you to obtain it. Itachi said, trying to comfort his friend. Izumi didn't believe Itachi at all, but let it go. Baisho was dead, and Naruto needed her now. What you suggest about the heart swap has some ground to stand on. However, to gain the final form of Sharingan you have to take your sibling's eyes. That means there must be a strong genetic connection between the donor and recipient. Naruto and Sasuke don't have such a connection. There must be something we're not seeing. Maybe something to do with Kyuubi. Itachi thought to himself. He gave Izumi a questioning look and asked, do you hate Naruto for killing Baisho? Izumi watched her little brother swinging on the monkey bars with Shoji. Shikamaru was sitting on top of the bars looking bored. No, I'm mad that it had to be Naruto to kill Baisho. Had I been present then I would have killed him instead. Naruto shouldn't have had to go through that. I failed as a big sister because I didn't keep my little brother safe. Izumi then gave Itachi a pleading look. That's why I need to know what you know. I believe Naruto followed Baisho that night because he knew what was happening. That means he possibly knows what's really going on with the clan, whatever it is, and who sent his older brother on that mission. If Naruto starts going after Uchiha clan members, then there will be retaliation. If the clan thinks it's someone working for Lord Hokage then that would be even worse. I have heard people saying they believe the Anbu killed my brother and Shisui already. If the Uchiha believe the village is deliberately targeting the strongest members then it could lead to fighting. She doesn't know how close she is to the truth. Itachi thought to himself. Let me talk with the Hokage about bringing you in on the secrets. I can't do anything yet without violating orders. I don't know if I can trust a Hokage, Itachi-kun, but I trust you. Neither Uchiha said anything more as they held hands and watched the children play. It wasn't much longer Itachi had to leave after getting a secret signal to attend a meeting with Hokage. Hokage's office, afternoon. Jiraiya stood in the corner, arms crossed and eyes closed, deep in thought. All that Sarutobi-sensei had revealed to him and Tsunade weighed heavy on his mind. Anger pumped through him at the confirmation that Hiruzen Sarutobi, the once held god of shinobi, had become nothing more than a stupid old man. How could he possibly have allowed things to get this bad? I doubt they helped the situation any. The Toad Sage thought bitterly, looking across the room. There stood the elders and Danzo, who had just recently arrived. The old war hawk didn't look happy about the fact both Sannin had been brought in on the big secret but so far hadn't said anything. All 6 people were waiting for Itachi and Kakashi. According to Sarutobi, Kakashi had been ordered to give Smoke Harbor one more look. He had been out of the village for the last few days on a mission. Hiruzen had sent him word to pass through the harbor upon his return. The Hokage fired up his pipe again just as a knock came from the door. Without invitation, both Kakashi and Itachi came in. The Uchiha didn't really look surprised to see everyone and was glad they were finally letting others in on the problem. Kakashi, Itachi, please come in and shut the door. This meeting will be considered top secret unless I say otherwise. Sarutobi explained. Kakashi, before you give your report, there are things you need to know. What followed next was an explanation on the Uchiha rebellion and the steps that had so far been taken to stop bloodshed. Throughout the explanation, Kakashi didn't say anything until it was over. The hand-me-down Sharingan user sighed exasperatedly. Well, this is a fine mess. Sarutobi took a pull from his pipe and asked Itachi. Do you have anything new to report? There was a small look of hesitation in Itachi's eyes. He then spoke. The Uchiha believed Baisho was killed by Anbu because he had become too powerful. Several believe that Shisui was killed for the same reason. However, some Uchiha believe he killed himself and others think I killed him to obtain stronger power. What do you mean? Kakashi asked, confused. Itachi then violated the secrets of the Uchiha clan by explaining to everyone present all about Manjikyu Sharingan. He also explained how Baisho possibly possessed the abilities due to inconsistencies in a mission report where a friend died and because of noted damage to the battlefield where the traitor died. Kakashi scratched the back of his head and asked, do we know how Shisui died? From all reports it would seem suicide was in fact the cause. The strain of being in between the Uchiha clan and Konoha drove him to it. Danzo answered simply. Itachi remained quiet, revealing the truth at this point, and time wouldn't help the situation. Kaharu Utatane looked around the room and asked, on Baisho's possible assassin, do we have anything new? Other than confirming that the killing blow was in fact a dark medical jutsu no. Tsunade explained. I've been able to make contact with several spies in the Land of Water, as well as the Nagi Islands. Jiraiya stated. It's believed a front man posing as a banker was the buyer of the slave shipment. We believe they hired the Uchiha for security who then hired the pirates for delivery. Sarutobi has already dispatched an Anbu unit to retrieve the frontman. We're hoping he can tell us which Uchiha he negotiated the deal with. Sarutobi was about to ask Kakashi if he had anything to report when he saw the hesitation again in Itachi's eyes. Do you have anything new to report about Itachi? The young Uchiha looked the Hokage in the eye hesitantly and asked. May I speak with you alone for a moment, sir? Everyone was silent as the Hokage thought about the request. After a moment he addressed the young protege. I'm sorry Itachi, but no. If we are to solve this problem without bloodshed, then everyone here needs to know all the facts. Itachi waited a moment, perhaps to see if Sarutobi would change his mind, then sighed. I believe that Uzumaki Naruto killed Uchiha Baisho based on facts Uchiha Izumi shared with me. Everyone was stunned as the statement sank in. It was Elder Councilman Homura Mitakato that spoke first. That's impossible, how could he have done so? A boy just shy of 8 with no real combat training, killing an elite Uchiha former Jounin. How? Kakashi, Itachi spoke addressing his fellow Sharingan user. You demonstrated the Rasengan to Uzumaki-san and Namikaze Sakura one evening during a sparring lesson? Kakashi confirming not Itachi explained. This one demonstration was all it took for Naruto to learn the fourths and duplicate it. Izumi confirmed as much when she explained how her little brother demonstrated the Rasengan for her in their living room. What was all Kakashi was able to say? He actually did better than anyone else. After absorbing the information, Jiraiya gave a short laugh. I see where you're going with this. I had the same thought when I first saw the picture of Baisho's corpse. The chakra burns on his chest looked like they were caused by the Rasengan. I dismissed this thought though, because the only two people I knew to know the technique are in this room. Tsunade had also figured it out. The medical he made that saved Lady Hitomi Hyuga. You think he combined both techniques into a one-hit kill? Itachi nodded and asked. Would a medical-based Rasengan cause the damage that was done to Baisho? Tsunade thought about all she knew of the Rasengan. She had studied the damaging effects of the technique for several years during the Third Great Ninja War. She could see the chaotic nature of the chakra combined with medicine doing severe damage. Jiraiya was thinking of something else. He was remembering all the times he watched Minato flash in and waylay an unsuspecting target. He remembered back to the day he examined Naruto while he was in the hospital and knew just how the boy could have won the fight. Even if the boy has such a technique, how could he have used it on Uchiha Baisho? Danzo asked. He needed to know everything about the village's weapons. Jiraiya looked at Hiruzen. The old man gave him the go-ahead to talk. After the heart transplant incident involving Naruto and Sasuke, I examined little Uzumaki to discover that Minato's master tag on the Kyuubi's prison had been replaced with someone else's. After the hospital staff turned over some surprising drawings done by the boy, I discovered that Naruto himself had placed his own master tag on the cage door. That's insane! Kaharu exclaimed. The level of skill and knowledge to perform such an act would take years to develop. Not for Naruto-kun. Saratobi said, smiling. He appears to have some unnatural ability regarding his ability to learn Fuinjutsu. We have yet to determine exactly what it is, but it's definitely Uzumaki clan related. It was more than just a master tag that we discovered, Jiraiya continued. We also discovered that Naruto was trying to invent space-time as well. One based on the fourth Hokage's design. It was Uchiha Oho that actually showed him Minato's marker, which started him on the path of teleportation. Kakashi was stunned. So, not only does he possess Minato-sensei's Rasengan, but also his Flying Thunder God Jutsu? Jiraiya shook his head and said. No, Naruto could never control his chakra enough to accurately use the fourth's technique. He was in the process of making a new technique based on the fourth's. One that didn't require precision chakra control. After finishing the explanation, Jiraiya had a thought. The only reason I can't use the Flying Thunder God is because I can't use such a small amount of precise chakra either. Could I use Naruto's method? Saratobi turned to Itachi and said, we believe Baisho encountered a powerful user of both wind and lightning. It is also possible there was unknown earth as well. Do you think Naruto had help possibly? His sister also confirmed to me Naruto had received instruction in wind techniques. She was unsure about lightning or earth. The Hokage sat back in his chair thinking. He lit his pipe and looked at Kakashi. The one-eyed Jounin seemed to still be taking everything in. Kakashi, what did you discover at Smoke Harbor? The man snapped out of his daze to look at his leader. What I have to say was supposed to be impossible, but after everything else I think it won't be so hard to accept. When I arrived at the harbor, the first thing I noticed was the massive elemental damage. I also believed that the warehouses and surrounding buildings had been destroyed by exploding tags. Reviewing the Anbu's original report, I saw they had agreed with all of this already. The only thing we disagree on is a detail that at first appeared to be only minor. All the candy that covered the battlefield. Kaharu spoke up confused. I remember, it was believed that an illegal shipment of stolen sweets had been kept in the warehouses when they were bombed. The explosion scattered peppermint and chocolate everywhere. That's what I thought until I took a closer look. Kakashi explained, removing a storage scroll from his green vest. He unsealed the scroll on Hiruzen's desktop. After the small puff of smoke cleared, everyone saw pieces of peppermint. Everyone watched silently as Kakashi began arranging the pieces just so. When he stepped back, everyone saw what he was getting at. A kunai and a katana made out of peppermint. Tsunade asked, amused. Only an Uzumaki would think of something like that. I think it's more than Lady Tsunade. Kakashi said. Judging by the amount of chocolate and peppermint, I was actually thinking we were looking at some kind of ninjutsu. Everyone gave Kakashi incredible looks. Then everyone turned to look at Jiraiya, but the sage was just as flabbergasted by the idea too. It was Tsunade that spoke. So, you're saying Uzumaki Naruto found some way to use his own special element and he chose candy? That would actually be a classic Uzumaki move. Is it possible? Could the boy have created an artificial element somehow? Kaharu asked in complete shock. In all her shinobi career she had never heard of such a thing. It would definitely be a Fuinjutsu-based ability. Jiraiya said, smiling. Uzumakis were known more for pranks and Fuinjutsu than anything else. This boy just combined both of his clan's deadliest aspects into one ultimate jutsu. If what we believe to be true is correct, then the Jinchuriki is in danger. Danzo said urgently. If the Uchiha discover he murdered one of their own, then they will retaliate. He should be removed immediately. The Sannin were giving Danzo cold looks while Itachi's and Kakashi's were unreadable. Saratobi took a pull from his pipe thinking it over. Hamura spoke up quickly in hopes of swaying the Hokage. Lord Danzo is correct. For his own safety and the village's best interest, the boy should be removed. The anvil would be the best place for him if the Uchiha wanted him dead. If he needs protecting, then the Hyuga would gladly take him, and I'm sure. Kaharu spoke in a hard voice. Everyone gave her surprised looks, and it was rare for her to disagree with the other two council members. We will not do anything so drastic. Saratobi said calmly. Itachi, watch over Naruto-kun and do your best to uncover him. Don't approach him yet about Baisho since we don't want to alarm him. Sir, I request permission to inform Uchiha Izumi about all that is happening regarding Naruto and the Uchiha. Itachi requested formally. Jiraiya spoke up in agreement with the protege. The girl has proven trustworthy, Saratobi. I believe Uchiha Oho might also be someone to confide in, as well. Saratobi thought it over and said. You may inform Izumi, but not Oho. Let's not forget he has yet to reveal anything about the Uchiha rebellion to me or the council despite plenty of opportunities to do so. I'm sure he has Naruto's best interest at heart, but I can't take any unnecessary chances with anyone I'm not absolutely certain about. The meeting ended after that with Itachi running to see Izumi. He was happy he could finally confide everything to his friend. He wondered about his brother and Naruto, contemplating whether or not the heart transplant had anything to do with their unnatural development. He would keep a close eye on both boys for everyone's sake. Meanwhile, Danzo had other ideas. Hiruzen Saratobi was a weak-willed fool that wore his heart upon his sleeve. The Sannin were powerful shinobi, but also lacked the conviction to do what was necessary for the Leaf Village's supremacy. It would seem Itachi had begun to believe the Uchiha could still be saved, which was going against everything he had been trying to groom the boy for, and the inclusion of Uchiha Izumi would only complicate things further. Something would have to be done soon. Thanks for watching my video, leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. If you want the next part of this story, let me know in the comment box. See you next time, till then sayonara.